Barney Stinson made you laugh. That was the trick. For 9 seasons, How I Met Your Mother sold as a character who lived louder than anyone else. The suits, the playbook, the catchphrases, the legendary nights, and we ate it up. We quoted him. We dressed up as him for Halloween. We made him the most iconic character in the entire show. But here's what we missed. Every laugh Barney Stinson got was hiding something. Every magic trick, every lie, every conquest was covering a wound that started before the show even began. Barney wasn't the funniest character in How I Met Your Mother. He was the most broken. And by the end of this video, you'll see exactly why the loudest man in the room was screaming the entire time. Let's start with a question you probably never asked yourself. Why was Barney Stinson always on? Think about it. Every scene Barney walked into, he had to perform, or he had to be the loud one, the funny one, the guy with the plan and the playbook, the punchline. He couldn't just exist in a room. Watch any episode again with this lens. When Ted is heartbroken, Barney makes a joke. When Marshall's grieving his father, Barney bets on a slap bet to lighten the mood. When the group is having a real conversation, Barney redirects it into something absurd. We thought this was his personality. It wasn't. It was his armor. Because there's a specific type of person who feels the need to fill every silence with noise. And it's not the confident extrovert we all assume. It's the person who's terrified of what happens when the noise stops. Barney Stinson was never comfortable being seen. Not really. He was comfortable being watched. There's a difference. Being watched means controlling the performance. Being seen means letting someone in. And Barney spent 30-something years making sure no one could tell the difference. To understand Barney, you have to go back to before the suits, before the bro code, before the show. You have to go back to a kid named Barney sitting on a couch with his mother and brother watching the news and seeing his father on TV, hosting a children's show, a father he'd never met, a father who'd left. That moment, that single moment, explains every single thing Barney Stinson would become. Because here's what Loretta, his mother, did next. She lied. She told young Barney that Bob Barker was his real father, the host of The Price is Right, a complete stranger he saw on television every week. Loretta didn't do it out of cruelty. She did it because she didn't know how to tell her son the truth, that his real father didn't want him, that he chose another family, that he was right there, on screen, smiling at other people's kids while Barney sat at home, missing him. So Barney grew up believing his father was a man he could only watch from a distance. Think about what that does to a child. And you don't just grow up without a father. You grow up watching a stranger be loved by other children, while your own mother makes up stories to protect you from the truth that you weren't worth staying for. And here's the real damage. Barney learned at a very young age that performing on a stage was the only way to get a father's attention. That if he could just be entertaining enough, loud enough, charming enough, maybe someone like Bob Barker would notice him too. Barney didn't choose to be a performer. He was raised to be one. But there's another moment, a specific moment, the one that finished what Loretta's lies started. Her name was Shannon. In the episode Game Night, we learn the truth about who Barney was before the suit. He was a soft-hearted, idealistic young man with shoulder-length hair who wore knit sweaters, played hacky sack, and wanted to join the Peace Corps with the love of his life. This Barney was real. This Barney was gentle. This Barney believed in love. And then Shannon left him for a man in a suit, a wealthy, soulless corporate stranger who walked into their apartment one day and offered her a life Barney couldn't compete with. She didn't just dump him. She rejected everything he was. Watch the scene where Barney walks in on them. Watch his face. That's not just heartbreak. That's identity death. That's the exact moment a man decides that the version of himself he's been showing the world is worthless. And from that day forward, Barney made a choice. If the world wanted suits, he'd become the suit. If sincerity got you abandoned, he'd weaponize insincerity. If being soft made you replaceable, he'd become so hard, so polished, so untouchable that no one would ever leave him again. The Barney we met in Season 1, the womanizer, the player, the man with the playbook, that wasn't the real Barney. That was a costume. A costume the real Barney built to protect himself from ever being humiliated by love again. Here's something most fans never realized about the Playbook. It was never about women. Yes, on the surface, the Playbook was a collection of elaborate schemes Barney used to manipulate women into sleeping with him. The Lorenzo von Matterhorn, the Mrs. Stinsfire, the scuba diver. We laughed, we cringed. We bought the actual book when it came out. But pause and think about what the Playbook actually was. It was a script. Every single play was a pre-written character Barney could become so he didn't have to be himself. Because here's the truth about every Playbook conquest. Barney never used the Playbook on a woman he actually cared about. He used it on strangers. People who would never know the real him. The Playbook wasn't about seduction. It was about hiding. Every alias, every fake accent, every absurd character. It was Barney's way of making sure that when these women rejected him, woke up next to him, or saw him for who he really was, they weren't rejecting Barney Stinson. They were rejecting Lorenzo von Matterhorn. And Lorenzo doesn't have feelings. Lorenzo can't be hurt. The Playbook was the most elaborate emotional armor in sitcom history, and nobody, not the audience, not even Barney's own friends, saw it for what it was. And then came Robin. Then came Quinn. Then came every moment in the later seasons where Barney almost let someone in. Watch Barney wedding to Robin, really watch it. That's not a man celebrating love, that's a man terrified. A man who has spent his entire life hiding behind a costume, suddenly being asked to take the costume off. And here's the part that breaks my heart. Barney tried. He genuinely tried to be a husband. He tried to be honest. He tried to let Robin see him. The real him, the one who had been hiding since Shannon. And it didn't work. Their marriage failed in 3 years. Not because Barney was a bad person, not because Robin didn't love him, but because Barney had spent so long being someone else that he didn't actually know who he was anymore. The costume had become the skin. And when the marriage ended, Barney didn't go back to being the hippie Barney. He didn't even go back to being the playboy Barney. He went somewhere worse. He went back to nothing. Empty. Wandering through bars, hitting on the women he didn't even want. Going through the motions of a character that had stopped meaning anything to him. And then Ellie, his daughter, born from a one-night stand, a child Barney never planned for, a child who arrived in his life almost like a cosmic accident. And in that hospital, holding his newborn daughter for the first time, Barney Stinson finally said something he had never said to another human being in his entire life. "You're the love of my life." That's not a joke. That's not a play. That's not a bro code line. That's a man who spent his entire life building walls so high that no one could ever hurt him. Finally being broken open by a 6-pound miracle who didn't care about the suit, the playbook, or the performance. Because here's the truth Barney spent 35 years running from. He wasn't afraid of being unloved. He was afraid of being seen and then unloved. Shannon saw him. She left. Bob Barker, the fake father, saw him only through a TV screen. His real father didn't want to see him at all. Every woman Barney slept with, he made sure they only saw a character. Every friend he made sure they only saw the performance. But Ellie? Ellie couldn't be tricked. Ellie didn't care about the playbook. Ellie just needed her dad. And for the first time in his life, Barney didn't have to perform to be loved. The hidden pain behind Barney Stinson wasn't his womanizing. It wasn't his lies. It wasn't even his absent father. The hidden pain behind Barney Stinson was that he spent 35 years believing that the real him, the soft-hearted, hopeful, hippie boy who wanted to join the Peace Corps, wasn't worthy of being loved, so he killed that boy. He buried him under suits and catchphrases and conquests, hoping nobody would ever find him again. And then his daughter dug him up. The legendary Barney Stinson wasn't legendary because he was loud or funny or charming. He was legendary because he survived 35 years of pretending to be someone else, and still had enough heart left to love his daughter the way no one ever loved him. That's not a sitcom character. That's a tragedy with a punchline. If this changed how you see Barney, comment below and tell me. Was Ellie his real redemption, or was it already too late? Next time on Yellow Umbrella, we're decoding the woman who broke more hearts than anyone in the entire group. The woman who couldn't say, "I love you" without running. The cold truth about Robin Scherbatsky. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And until next time, stay legendary.